The Boxcar Children, Chapter 2, The Second Night. The roosters crowed and the hens clucked. The farmer's wife began to get breakfast, and the 4 children slept on. Dinner time came and went, and they slept. For it must be remembered that they had been awake and walking during the whole night. In fact, it was nearly 7 o'clock in the evening when they woke. Luckily, all the others woke up before Benny. "Can you hear me, Jess?" said Henry, speaking very low through the wall of hay. "Yes," answered Jess softly. "Let's make one big room of our nests." No sooner said than done. The boy and girl worked quickly and quietly until they could see each other. They pressed the hay back firmly until they had made their way into Violet's little room, and then she in turn groped until she found Benny. "Hello, little Cinnamon," whispered Violet playfully, and Benny at once made up his mind to laugh instead of cry, but laughing out loud was almost as bad. So Henry took his little brother and on the hay beside him and talked to him seriously. "You're old enough now, Benny, to understand what I say to you. Now listen. When I tell you to keep still after this, that means you're to stop crying if you're crying, stop laughing if you're laughing, and just be as still as you possibly can. If you don't mind, you'll be in danger. Do you understand?" "Don't I have to mind Jess and Violet too?" asked Benny. "Absolutely," said Henry. "You have to mind us all, every one of us." Benny thought a minute. "Can I ask for what I want any more?" he asked. "Indeed you can," cried Jess and Henry together. "What is it that you want?" "I'm awful hungry," said Benny anxiously. Henry's brow cleared. "Good old Benny," he said. We're just going to have supper. Or is it breakfast?" Jess drew out the fragrant loaf of bread. She cut it with Henry's jackknife into 4 quarters, and she and Henry took the 2 crusty ends themselves. "That's because we have to be the strongest, and crusts make you strong," said Jess. Violet looked at her older sister. She thought she knew why Jess took the crust, but she didn't speak. "We'll stay here till dark, and then we'll get on with our journey," said Henry cheerfully. "I want a drink," announced Benny. "A drink you shall have," Henry promised, "but you'll have to wait till it gets really dark. If we should creep out to the brook now and anyone saw us—" He didn't finish his sentence, but Benny realized that he must wait. He was much refreshed from his long sleep and felt very lively. Violet had all she could do to keep him amused, even with Cinnamon Bear and his 5 brothers. At last Henry peeped out. It was after 9 o'clock. There were lights in the farmhouse still, but they were all upstairs. "We can at least get a drink now," he said, and the children crept into the noisy little brook not far from the haystack. "Cup," said Benny. "No, you'll have to lie down and drink with your mouth," Jess explained, and so they did. Never did water taste so cool and delicious as it did that night to the thirsty children. When they had finished drinking, they jumped the brook and quickly ran over to the fields to the wall, and once more found themselves on the road. "If we meet anyone," said Jess, "we must all crouch behind bushes until he has gone by." They walked along in the darkness with light hearts. They were no longer tired or hungry. Their one thought was to get away from their grandfather if possible. "If we can find a big town," said Violet, won't it be better to stay in than a little town?" "Why?" asked Henry, puffing up the hill. "Well, you see, there's so many people in a big town, nobody will notice us. And in a little village, everyone would be talking about us," Henry finished admiringly. "You've got brains, Violet." He had hardly said this when a wagon was heard behind them in the distance. It was coming from Middlesex. Without a word, the 4 children sank down behind the bushes like frightened rabbits. They could plainly hear their hearts beat. The horse trotted nearer, and they began to walk up the hill. If we hear nothing in Townsend, they heard a man say, we've plainly done our duty. It was the baker's voice. More than our duty, said the baker's wife, tiring out a horse with going a full day from morning till night. There was silence as the horse pulled the creaky wagon. At least we'll go on to Townsend tonight, continued the baker, and tell them to watch out. We need not go to Intervale, for they could never walk so far. We're well rid of them, I should say, replied his wife. They may not have come this way. The milkman did not see them, did he? The baker's reply was lost, for the horse had reached the hilltop, where he broke into a canter. It was some minutes before the children dared to creep out of the bushes again. One thing's for sure, said Henry when he got his breath. We will not go to Townsend. And we will go to Intervale, said Jess. With definite goal in mind at last, the children set out with a better spirit. They walked until 2 o'clock in the morning, stopping often, this time to rest and to drink from the horses' watering troughs. Then they came upon a fork in the road with a white signpost shining in the moonlight. Townsend 4 miles, Intervale 6, said Henry aloud. Anyone feel able to walk 6 more miles? He grinned. No one had the least idea how far they had walked. We'll go that way at least, said Jess finally. That we will, agreed Henry, picking up his brother for a change and carrying him piggyback. Violet went ahead. The new road was a pleasant woody one, with grass growing in the middle. The children could not see the grass, but they could feel it as they walked. Not many people pass this way, I guess, remarked Violet. Just then she caught her toe on something and almost fell, but Jess caught her. The 2 girls stooped down to examine the obstruction. Hey, said Jess. Hey, repeated Violet. Hey, cried Henry, coming up. What did you say? It must have fallen off somebody's load, said Jess. We'll take it with us, Henry decided wisely. Load on all you can carry, Jess. For Benny, thought Violet to herself. So the odd little party trudged on for nearly 3 hours, laden with hay, until they found that the road ended in a cart path through the woods. Oh, dear, exclaimed Jess, almost ready to cry with disappointment. What's the matter? Demanded Henry in astonishment. Isn't the woods a good place to sleep? Can't we sleep in the road, you know? Or we can't sleep in the road, you know. It does seem nice and far away from people, admitted Jess, and it's almost morning. As they stood still at the entrance of the woods, they heard a rumble of a train. It roared down the valley at a great rate and passed them on the other side of the woods, thundering along towards the city. Never mind the train either, remarked Henry. It isn't awfully near, and even if it were, it couldn't see us. He set his brother down and peered into the woods. It was very warm. Listen, said Benny. Listen, said Violet. More water, Benny cried, catching his big brother by the hand. It's only another brook, said Henry with a thankful heart. He wants a drink. The trickle of the water sounded very pleasant to all the children as they lay down once more to drink. Benny was too sleepy to eat. Jess quickly found a dry spot thick with moss between 2 stones. Upon the moss the 3 older children spread out the hay in the shape of an oval bed. Benny tumbled into it with a great sigh of satisfaction, while his sisters tucked the hay around him. Pine needles up here, Jess, called Henry from the slope. Each of them quickly scraped together a fragrant pile for a pillow, and once more lay down to sleep with hardly a thought of fear. I only hope we don't have a thunderstorm, said Jess to herself, as she shut her tired eyes. And she did not open them for a long time, although the gray clouds piled higher and more thickly over the sleeping children. right, that was chapter 2. I'll send you chapter 3 in a couple of days.